And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Benched with Bubba, episode 114. Going to talk some recent fantasy football news after the week one of preseason action. Going to get into the top 20 wide receivers based on Fantasy Pro ADP. So a lot of fun stuff to talk about here to get you ready for your fantasy football drafts. In order to do so, I have a special guest with me. You can find his work over at fightingchancefantasy.com. He is on Twitter at fightingchance. Fighting Chance, Ryan, how we doing, man?
Doing great, Bubba. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Man, we're getting a little closer to the season. Can't wait.
Yep, it's getting here real quick, really, really quick. When I started doing the football stuff, I was like, oh, we got plenty of time. And nope, it's here. It's happening. So before we get started, why don't you let everybody know what you got going on over there at Fighting Chance? I know we've done a lot of fun little polls and tournaments, non-sports related, and you got a bunch of football stuff going on. So let everybody know.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of stuff going on. Right now, we got Jim Day, the Fantasy Taz, is pumping out training camp articles, 2 a day right now, one for the AFC, one for the NFC. He follows a ton of beat writers, and he condenses all that down into a nice, simple way for people to read. So that's the big thing. We have another mock draft, which you're going to be participating in tomorrow, so there'll be a write-up for that coming up there. And then we got a couple other writers, Casey Kasem, she's got some stuff going on. We have Brian Drake we just brought on. He's, I know, doing an article about Ben Roethlisberger tonight. And, of course, you can always hear Steve Rapp and myself do our podcast every Thursday night, 10 o'clock. And there's a player embedded right on the site if you want to listen to that live.
Nice. Well, that seems like a lot of good stuff there. So go check them all out at fightingchancefantasy.com and get all the info there. A lot of good people over there that I've interacted with throughout the last couple of years. Let's get into some news from the past week, and then before we get into the wide receivers, Derrius Guice, for those living under a rock, reports were, it's just a sprain, no big deal. No, he tore his ACL. He's out for the year. So that's not even in the question now. But the big question is, what do you do at the running back position in Washington? Because it is quite a mess, Ryan.
Yeah, to me, the story's not told yet. I know Jake Gruden came out and was like, we're good with the guys we have. But first of all, what's he supposed to say? Like, we got a bunch of trash on this roster. We're going to have to figure something out. He's not going to do that. And second of all, I know their front office is a mess, but last I checked, I don't think he's making all the personnel decisions anyway. So I think, you get a lot of coach speak at this time of year. Guys trying to either pump up their players or motivate their players, which I think we're going to hit on a couple other places. But if I was drafting right now, I wouldn't. I tweeted something when this news broke. This doesn't put P. Ryan in any better spot for me. I still think, we saw he was a lot of hot garbage last year. Rob Kelly is just so past being relevant. I think the starting running back for the Redskins, I'm not 100% sure it's on the roster right now. If I was drafting right now, I'd stay away from the whole situation.
Yeah, I'm with you. You don't want Kelly. You don't want Piran. And if that's what they're going to town with, well, stay away from the whole situation. If they go get a DeMarco Murray or they go find someone else, yes, then we have something to be interested in. But at the moment, it's a hot mess that we should just sit back and watch. So totally agree with you there. Let's talk about another interesting running back situation in San Francisco now with Jerrick McKinnon hurting his calf injury. Matt Breida separated shoulder. He's going to be out for a little bit. They go and sign Alfred Morris. Everyone's talking about, the reunion with Shanahan. What's your take on this Niners backfield right now?
Well, I'm actually a Niners fan, and if Alfred Morris leads our backfield into the season, I'm going to be very, very sad. He's okay. He was a decent change of pace when not Darren McFadden, when Ezekiel Elliott was hurt. But he's not really shown anything. He's kind of a big plotting guy. I think McKinnon is going to be okay. It kind of stinks that he's going to probably lose some of the preseason with his first year with the team. But I'm not really dropping him down my rankings. I think McKinnon will be okay. Breida separated his shoulder. That scares me a little bit. It's kind of a rough injury to have as a running back. But also don't forget Joe Williams, who they drafted last year, missed all of last season, who Kyle Shanahan apparently beat the table to draft last year. He should be healthy. So, if you're skeptical on McKinnon, Breida's banged up. Don't fall in love completely with Joe Morris. Don't forget about Alfred Morris and Joe Williams, excuse me.
No worries. Breida separated shoulder. Yeah, that is a little worrisome there. Eventually he'll come back, but just to what extent is the question. And I agree, Jerrick McKinnon.
It just seems like an easy injury to It just seems like an easy one to re-injure is my problem with it.
No, and that's what I agree with. If he's running downhill like he's supposed to, he's going to run right into guys and separate that shoulder again, probably. So a little to worry about there. McKinnon, yes, when he comes back, he should be fine. We weren't expecting McKinnon to carry the workload anyways. So that leads me to my question. Many people were high on Matt Breida as, an option later in drafts. Are you looking at an Alf Morris or a Williams late in drafts, or are you just going to kind of wait and see how that plays out?
I really can't see Morris being a huge factor. Like I said, he's done okay in small doses, but it doesn't really seem like the Kyle Shanahan type of back to me. I know they worked together before, but not really much of a pass catcher at all. So maybe he'll vulture some touchdowns, but if I'm going for, towards the end of the draft, and I'm shooting for someone I think maybe can help me later on, I'm going to shoot for Joe Williams.
Okay, I like it. Let's talk about one that each week it seems like there's more and more anticipation, more and more excitement behind Andrew Luck. We finally saw him go out and play a little in preseason. The part I wanted to see the most, he took a hit and got right back up. He looked good. I know it's preseason, it's week one. We got to temper expectations. But it definitely, 2 weeks ago, I'd have told you I wanted nothing to do with this man. Now I'm starting to get a little bit of feel-goods about Andrew Luck. What's your thoughts on Andrew Luck going into the season? Because there's people that want nothing to do with him, middle of the pack, and I've even heard some have him like top 5. So what are you thinking?
I am on the nothing to do with him train. I have my quarterback rankings up, which have to be updated, but he was 30 for me. And I'm not 100% sure I'm even going to move him when I do redo my rankings. I said, what I've been saying all along, I want to see him get drilled into the ground and get up. All right, so that happened to an extent. But here's my problem with the top 5 people. It's been almost 2 years since he played in a competitive game. Week 17 of 16. We're now at August of 2018. So almost 2 calendar years since he played a game. Didn't play at all last year, despite all these good reports from the Colts. And let's face it, his weapons aren't very good. T.Y. Hilton is a good, speedy receiver. But after that, there's not a lot to get excited about. On top of the fact that, 16 was a good season for him, but we're still kind of in love with I think it's a 2014 season where he threw 40 touchdowns. A lot's happened since then. A lot of serious injuries to his shoulders. I don't know that he's going to have the same zip he used to have. And I'm certainly not willing to put my number 1 quarterback on my fantasy team on the line for that. The position is too deep for me to take this much of a chance with the guy who's going to be starting every week on my team for a position, let's face it, that usually scores the most points.
No, I agree with all of that. If I'm taking him, he's my number 2, which means I'm probably not taking him the way things are starting to look now. Because you said it, is the position is so deep. You don't need, literally, if you're in a single quarterback league, you can wait till almost like it's a defense now. It's so deep. You don't have to go crazy with it. And Luck's he's going way too early now. I'd rather sit and wait for a Roethlisberger or a Rivers and let someone take Luck ahead of him. Not to mention many other options back there. So will be quite interesting. Let's talk Carson Wentz, who was earlier the number 5 ADP quarterback out there. He's kind of dropped a little bit, but still people are in love with him, saying don't worry about it. He'll be just fine, because people don't realize that an ACL injury apparently doesn't affect anything. But he flat out said, I'm 50-50 basically for week 1. He's trying to get back for week 1. He's not 100% confident there. What's your feelings on Carson Wentz going into the season?
Well, I'm going to be the complete opposite on this one, and I really, really like Wentz. I have him in my top 5 quarterbacks. The injury was towards the end of the year. I think it was week 13 or week 14. I want to say it was 13. So he's probably about 8 months, 9 months out. Knee injuries, I can't say I am going to say they're not what they used to be. These guys are able to rehab a lot sooner. If he misses, if you draft him, like we were just saying, the quarterback is very deep. Draft a Rivers late, draft a Manning late, a guy to get you through a week or two. I don't think he's going to be out long, and he's just masterful last year. I love what I saw from the kid. So I'm not going to let maybe missing week 1 stop me from taking this guy that I think can help me all year long.
Yeah, there's a lot to like there in Philly, and it's weird because Alshon Jeffries just finally is taking snaps on the side field. Nelson Aguilar's missed a lot of time. And the running back situation is kind of a question mark. Nick Foles has a bad back, yet they're the defending champions, and everyone's on board right now. Let's talk Detroit Lions running backs real quick. Kerryon Johnson, the rookie, everyone loves him, had a pretty good first week of preseason action. And Lagarrette Blount came out and has been announced as the goal line back. Like, we kind of had the idea. It's been stated now. He is the goal line back, so vulturing will take place. Does that affect your opinion on Kerryon Johnson at all this year?
Maybe slightly, but not too much. You know, there was a time, even maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where there was goal line backs all over the league. You know, these big plotting guys who came in and stole the little guys' touchdowns, who ran the ball all the way down the field. Blount's kind of like the last one of this, you know, the kind of dinosaur position that's not really there. My problem with Johnson is more of Detroit than Blount. You know, they haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher since, I don't know. It was, I think, 1942, the last time they had a 1,000-yard rusher, which is a huge exaggeration. But it just seems like every time they bring somebody in, they really fall short of expectations. I like Johnson a lot. I have him definitely in my top 30 runners. Blount is all right. I don't know that I expect a whole lot out of him. So I don't know that his presence really hurts Johnson's value all too much, at least as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Let's talk about another running back, rookie running back, Saquon Barkley. Everyone was on cloud 9 after the big run in his opener, had a good first game, goes and gets hurt at practice. Everyone says it's very, very minor, no big deal. Do you have any concern on Saquon Barkley? Does he affect your rankings at all?
It's not going to affect my rankings. The only thing, you know, I think if he was a second or third year into the league, he might not play the rest of the preseason. But as a rookie, they're going to have to get him in there some more. So I wouldn't be surprised maybe if he misses one preseason game as total, you know, precaution. But you know, he looked pretty good on that long run. It seems like he does it all. I still have him definitely as a top, I think 7 running back, and a little hammy. No, isn't gonna change what I think of him.
Yeah, he's an absolute monster, and he's going to be one of those rookie running backs that kind of sets the tone for rookie running backs like Ezekiel did, and now it's his turn to definitely make that statement. Let's talk about tight end David Njoku out of Cleveland, who many liked last year, really never got it going in the system. He had a huge week 1, and again, it's preseason, but Tyrod hit him for a big one. Baker hit him for a big one, so 2 touchdowns. Is this what we're expecting? Is it finally going to happen this year, or is this just a preseason overreaction?
I think it's got a real good chance of happening this year. He's a guy I like. I'm targeting as in a lot of leagues you don't have 2 tight ends, so you know he might not even end up getting drafted. Maybe after this, he's gonna vault up some people's boards. But I do think he's got a really good chance. I mean, he came out of college, really athletic, great hands, and he lost downs to Seth DeValve last year, which was completely inexplicable. I can't. How did that happen? I don't know. You know, but when he was on the field, he was able to make some sort of an impact. The Browns are such a huge wild card to me this year. I don't know what to think of any of them. You know, we don't know who the quarterback is going to be. You figure Tyrod Taylor is going to start the season at least. If things go well, I think Njoku's going to have a real good chance to have a top 10 tight end type of season. But they had a lot of changes. I mean, new quarterback, new receivers, new running back. It's just so much turnover on this offense that I don't know if it might take a minute to click. It might take 2, 3, 4 weeks before it clicks with so many new guys on the team. So if you do draft him, I would preach a little patience. The kid has got all the talent in the world. It's just a matter of putting it together.
Yeah, super, super talented. And you said it. Cleveland has so many new toys in that offense this year, and they're just all over the place. I guess the one good thing is if Tyrod stays back there, we know Tyrod always had a relationship with his tight end and Charles Clay in Buffalo, something he can hopefully build on there. But, you know, all this new weapons Tyrod didn't really have in the wide receiving game. You have a Duke Johnson that can play in the slot in the backfield in the passing game. Carlos Hyde, Nick Chubb with Landry is going to be a monster. Blessed. So many things to like in Cleveland. Real quick, Baker Mayfield, huge game. Everyone's raving about. There's a reason they took him number 1, so on and so forth. What did you think about his first game?
I haven't been a big Baker Mayfield fan coming into the season, but after 1 week, maybe I got to change my tune a little bit. We'll see. I'm still a little worried about him, at least for 2018, as far as fantasy is concerned, just because of Tyrod Taylor, and we'll see how long it takes him to get on the field. And maybe he lights it up the rest of the preseason. Maybe he's a starter week 1. If that's the case, then he could be in for a good season. I'm lightening up on him. I was surprised when he went first overall. I kind of thought, Darnold might go first or even Rosen, but I'm starting to come around on him.
Were there any other, preseason standouts for you that kind of like got your attention, maybe changed your rankings a little bit or made you take some notes to watch more coming up down the road here?
Sticking with the Browns, then we have Antonio Callaway, if he can stay off the pot. Definitely had a huge opening game. We don't know what's going on with Josh Gordon. But then we're just talking how many weapons they have. Can this kid come in and make an impact? Is he going to get the opportunity to make an impact, or was this preseason? So he was one that definitely stuck out for me.
Nice. Tampa Bay, Dirk Cutter, obviously on the hot seat. They drafted Ronald Jones out of USC, very talented running back. He's come out and, the media blew it out of proportion when he says Peyton Barber's our number 1. If you listen back to his soundbite, it was kind of like, we have 2 really good running backs. We're going to have a battle throughout camp. Right now, Peyton's our number 1. He didn't flat out say going into the season, Peyton's our number 1. How do you interpret this? Because once I finally heard the whole thing, I kind of sat back and said, okay, to me, he wants to press the rookie a little bit and do some of that stuff. What was your take on Dirk Cutter's talk here?
Yeah, this is kind of what I was referring to earlier when I said, we're going to hear a lot of stuff coming out of coaches in the next few weeks. This, to me, I think is the other part that I was thinking. I think this is trying to push the rookie, try to light a little fire under him to, don't want him to just get too comfortable. He was drafted early, so a lot of people think he's just going to walk into the job, and I think he should. I think he's by far a better running back than Peyton Barber. So I expect Jones to be the starter. I expect Barber to have a role, but I do expect Jones to get at least 15 carries a game this year.
Yeah. Let's talk some wide receivers now. We've done the quarterback preview. We've done the running back preview. Going to do 2 wide receiver ones. We're going to start you off with the top 20 based on Fantasy Pros ADP at the moment. There's tons of different places people can look at for rankings, ADPs, whatever. This is just the easiest one for me to go to with all the different conglomerates that they use. And we're going to go in groups of 5 here. And we're going to kick it off with let's just beforehand, how do you approach the fantasy football wide receiver position when you're going into drafts? Let's say half point, full point PPR league.
This year it's been a little different for me. And I've been waiting for 2 reasons, and not necessarily waiting where I'm, waiting 6 rounds, but I'm not loading up early on wide receivers. I'll usually take 1 in the first 2 rounds, maybe 3 rounds, depending on how things fall. But then I found myself waiting a lot, and that's for 2 reasons. And one is because the running back position falls off a cliff so fast that I've been finding myself drafting running backs early because, 1, they get hurt a lot. 2, there's so many committees, and 3, after like the first 15, I don't feel all that comfortable with a lot of them. So I found myself waiting on wide receiver a lot for that. So I like to have 1 of the top 20, maybe 2, but I've really been filling out my wide receiver roster last when I've been doing drafts.
Yeah, that's kind of been my deal. The one I'm in right now, I believe you're in it as well. The Roto Buddy one. Are you in that one too?
No, I don't think I'm in that one. I'm actually not in a slow draft right now for the first time in about 2 months.
That's Steve then. Steve's in that one. Okay. Yeah, it's of course on the turn I took Derrius Guice, and that didn't work out too well. And receivers late's been the approach in that one for me. But we'll see because, the running backs drop off rapidly. I'm in full agreement with you there. Let's talk wide receivers now. I'll kick it off with the top 5 in ADP. You got Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, OBJ, Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, the best of the best. We'll kick it off with you real quick. Antonio Brown, really no question here. Where would you take him in the first round of the draft?
I believe the highest I've taken him was 6th overall. The top 4 running backs for sure. and then you get into the Barkley, the Kamara, that kind of thing, or you go wide receiver. And I believe I did a draft where I took him 6th overall, is the highest I've taken Antonio Brown.
I like it. DeAndre Hopkins, hopefully getting a full year to Deshaun Watson. We've seen Hopkins play with all the bad quarterbacks last year, and it didn't matter at all. He is a monster and should continue things on. Do you see anywhere where like the difference between Hopkins, OBJ, and Julio Jones, those big three there in spots 2 through 4, that all in for good years, but is Hopkins the clear number 2 for you?
To me, he is. To me, he's on Brown's heels. I have a giant man crush on DeAndre Hopkins, and I have since he was a rookie. And a lot of it comes down to one reason. I don't know if maybe you remember this, maybe you don't. But I saw a video where he stood in front of one of those machines that throws the football. He caught 33 in a row with one hand. And it was just ridiculous. They were like, past him, and he hurled it in. Like, the guy catches everything. It's like he's got just gloves for hands. I've never seen like and it does, like you said, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. He's amazing. He had the one down year, but he's so damn good. So he is easily my second. Beckham, he is my least favorite player in football, but I do understand his talent. My concern with him is his injury. I know the Giants are going to baby him, and he's not going to play a lot of the preseason. That shouldn't be a big issue. He's still my number 3. He's not a rookie. So, I mean, him and Eli Manning already have a chemistry. So missing the preseason is a huge deal, but he's had a little injury history, so a little trepidation. Michael Thomas is my 4th. Big, huge target on a good passing team. I know the Saints ran a lot more last year, but they still threw plenty, and Thomas is a clear-cut number 1 on that team. So I expect another huge year out of him. Julio Jones, personally, I don't have in my top 5. He doesn't score enough touchdowns for me. I know last year was really bad with 3, but I think he's only scored 6, maybe 3 times in his career. He gets a lot of receptions, a lot of yards, although the last 2 years, I know he hasn't even top 90 receptions. So Julio, I have a few more spots down. So he's outside my top 5.
It seems like some are like really, really huge on this quote-unquote Julio bounce back, and you just nailed it there. He's been really good, and I think it was Josh ADHD or Matt Williams or whatever tweeted out a photo of consistency, and Julio's always up top, and then you had like it was OBJ or something, very, very erratic, which you kind of expect. But when OBJ goes off, he goes off, and it's a big difference. When you're talking about like Julio Jones, what are your thoughts about like Calvin Ridley being there? People are in love with him, and he's super talented. Some say it's kind of a mini-me. Do you think he's going to have that big of an impact to maybe take away from Julio, or is he just kind of there?
I mean, a couple things. One, a lot of rookie wide receivers tend not to make huge impacts in their first season. Not all. I mean, we saw like Juju Smith-Schuster last year had a great rookie year. But my other problem is, and every year people argue with me about Julio Jones because I do this every year and everybody loves him. So I get in the same arguments every year. But outside of the humongous Super Bowl season for the Falcons, look at Matt Ryan's stats. They're not all that impressive. I think that was the 1 year he's broken 30 touchdowns. I know he throws to Jones in the red zone a lot. I know he had a ton of red zone targets last year, but then that makes the 3 touchdowns even worse. Ridley maybe can help him if he's if he can maybe draw some defense away from him, because it's not like the Falcons have had a household name as their second receiver basically Jones' whole career. But Jones, he does the same thing. He goes off these huge games. He had that 220-something yard game last year, and you take that out, which I know you can't do because he had it. But I mean, he scored a lot of his points in one game. So I hope Ridley can help him, but I don't know. I've just never really liked the guy. From a fantasy.
And the last question here. The last question on the top 5 is you mentioned Michael Thomas as your 4. I completely agree. People are sleeping on the Saints again. Drew Brees. A lot of people, you can get him later than ever, basically, for a fantasy draft for him, for his standards. They do have Cam Meredith. There's a lot of buzz about Cam Meredith being kind of one of those late-round wide receiver flyers. What are your thoughts on the Meredith-Thomas combo there in New Orleans?
I am one of the ones with the Meredith buzz. I know I drafted him in the Scott Fish Bowl. I've drafted him in a couple other. I like him. I like a little bit of what he did with the Bears with garbage quarterback play. Now he goes to New Orleans, on the fast surface at home with a great quarterback and a big number one receiver to take some of the defense away from. I'm a big Meredith at the end of draft kind of guys. And if he does make an impact, much like I said with Julio, maybe they'll take some of more of the defense away from Michael Thomas. He's a stud. I might put him at number 3 over Beckham, but I probably won't. It's really close though. But I think Thomas is going to be a star for a very long time.
I like it. Let's go 6 through 10. Might be different than your rankings, but I got Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, AJ Green, Mike Evans, Tyreek Hill. Keenan Allen will always have a soft spot in my heart. I think I've taken him every year, and last year he finally stayed healthy, and my goodness, it was amazing. And I don't see that slowing down this year as long as he's healthy. I think the San Diego offense is going to be very, very good, and he's going to get fed over and over again in that offense. What's your thoughts on Keenan Allen? Because I'd honestly would have him over like an OBJ and some of those guys.
I have been burned by him before, so the soft spot that you have is a hardened spot for me. But I have drafted him a couple times this season just because, this whole next section is kind of wishy-washy. Like there's not a lot of separation to me between these guys, but I think Allen has the highest ceiling. Like if he has a Keenan Allen season, I think it will be better than any of Adams, Green, Evans, or Hill. So that's where I found myself drafting him. I'm like, all right, I'm willing to give you one more shot. Don't burn me again. But I totally agree with you with the Chargers offense. I think Phillip Rivers is being criminally underrated. I think they're going to throw a ton again, and Allen is by far the number one receiver there. So I'm cautious, but yeah, I agree. I think if healthy, which has been an if for him, he has a chance to be a top 3 receiver.
You got Tyrell Williams and Mike Williams there in San Diego, and depends on who you like is the guy. And right now, I believe they're saying Tyrell is the number 2. That could obviously change if you had to take one of those 2 late in drafts. Which one are you looking at?
I'm taking Mike Williams. I've been a Tyrell fan over the past couple of years, and he's had some good games, but I would think that he would have made more of an impact by now if he was going to. He's a big, tall guy. I'm not sure why he hasn't been a bigger part of the offense. So I'm going to give it to he's not a rookie, second-year guy now, Mike Williams, and we'll give him a shot. And I think he's going to be a great red zone target. And if I had to pick one, I'm going to go with the guy who I think has the higher ceiling.
I like it. Devontae Adams, obviously in Green Bay with possibly one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, or definitely the one on the field right now, in Aaron Rodgers. You have Randall Cobb out there. You have people wanting Geronimo Allison in play. How much does just all that workload inconsistency affect you with Devontae Adams?
I am a big Adams fan. And where I didn't like Julio Jones is where I like Devontae Adams is the touchdowns. I mean, he's been a consistent touchdown scorer, even if he's not a high-volume reception guy. I mean, even with Hundley last year, Adams still had a great season with an awful quarterback. So he's right up there for me.
Yeah, I like that. AJ Green, Mike Evans, kind of 2 similar guys to me, both in okay teams. Evans can have those big weeks from time to time. Consistency may be a factor there. AJ Green, similar to that. I think AJ Green might have more of an upside, but you have Andy Dalton back there, so you have a lot to wonder about. What's your thoughts with those 2 guys? Are you just kind of passing over them, or do you have any interest in those 2?
These are the guys that I get into, and then I'm like, yeah, man, they have a chance to have a great season. And they've also done some duds. I've been an AJ Green fan for a long time. And like you said, he's cursed by the quarterback. And why I think Dalton is better than some people give him credit for. He certainly leaves a lot to be desired.
Probably better real life than fantasy. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But you just got to get the ball kind of near Green, and he's going to get to it. The problem is he is starting to get a little up there in age, and the nagging injuries have started to creep in on him a little bit. So that's my concern kind of with him this year. Mike Evans has just been all over the map. He's either the top 2 wide receiver or the 20th wide. There's no in between for him. He's either awesome or he's terrible. Kind of like Doug Martin's been the last couple of years at running back, although he's trash now. But I'm not so concerned about Winston being suspended because Evans did pretty well last year when Ryan Fitzpatrick was the quarterback. I just don't know that I feel great about going to Mike Evans as my number 1 receiver into the season.
Yeah, if he's my number 2 somehow, if I go wide receiver heavy, okay, all aboard that train. Both these guys. But number 1, I completely agree with you. I'd rather have one of those guys at the top or take a chance somewhere in the next tier possibly. I'm going to mention the next tier, but I want to go back to Tyreek Hill in a minute. But 11 through 15, you got Stephon Diggs, T.Y. Hilton, Adam Thielen, Doug Baldwin, Amari Cooper. So you got Tyreek Hill, ADP's 10, Stephon Diggs, ADP 11. Similar type players. Diggs has what maybe the better quarterback right now, but people love Mahomes in Kansas City. How do you decipher between a Tyreek Hill and a Stephon Diggs?
It's tough. There's two, and you pretty much nailed it there with Tyreek Hill. All right, so now he's one of the fastest guys in the NFL, and he had basically a noodle-armed quarterback over the past few years and still did pretty well. Now he's got a guy who can get him the ball and get him the ball way down the field. Unfortunately, that guy has played one NFL game, and it didn't really even matter for much. So there's the question mark of Mahomes. As far as Diggs is concerned, Thielen was a better receiver last year. They get an improvement in quarterback with Cousins. So, I mean, all signs point to Minnesota being a spectacular offense. In that case, there's enough for Diggs and Thielen to both be awesome. I'd probably lean Hill very slightly. His explosive ability is hard to match. His speed might be unmatched. And I do believe in Mahomes. I think Mahomes will be good. There are certainly question marks, but I believe that Hill will be slightly better. And he also doesn't have. I know Sammy Watkins is there, but he's fine. But he doesn't have. Hill doesn't have the competition that Diggs has as a second wide receiver.
Exactly. Adam Thielen and Sammy Watkins, if people try to compare those two, they're a little crazy. And there's a lot of Sammy Watkins love out there right now, but that's a little far-fetched. How do you pick between Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen on the same team?
I hate to just cop out like this, but to me, it's almost a coin flip. We all expected Diggs to have a better season last year, and Thielen was unguardable. You would think by the end of the year, someone would have done some defensive coordinators would have drawn something up to take this guy away, but they just couldn't do it. I still think Diggs is a more talented receiver. I expect him to have a better season this year than he did last year, and for Thielen to regress a little bit. But you probably can't go wrong with either one. Like I said, Cousins is going to be a better quarterback than Case Keenum, and the running back should be great. Dalvin Cook, should keep defenses, honest there. Kyle Rudolph at tight end. There's nowhere for the defense to focus on. So I mean, any of these guys can be great. So it could be as a coin flip. I probably lean very, very slightly to Diggs.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think what you said is how it's funny how none of the defenses could game plan for him last year. I think this offseason there's been a lot of game planning towards taking Thielen out, and we might see a little role reversal there. But anyway you look at it, that Minnesota offense looks outstanding this year, not just from the game one dominance it did, just all those pieces of the puzzle should be very, very good. Doug Baldwin, before the injury, he was much higher on the ADP list. It's questionable if he's even going to make it to the start of the season. Eventually, he will come back, and eventually he's very, very good. And we have to really realistically think about it. No Jimmy Graham, no Paul Richardson. Russell Wilson loves Doug Baldwin. He's going to be very, very good. What's your thoughts on Baldwin with this injury going into the season?
If you can get him as your second, I think that's an awesome pick. So you have the ADP at 14. So he's going a very high wide receiver too, and I think he's worth every bit of it. I keep waiting for the Seattle, for Russell Wilson and the Seattle offense to kind of fall apart just because their offensive line is so terrible. But if somehow Wilson just continues to pull these rabbits out of hats, it's like him and Baldwin, I don't know, they have like radar for each other when plays break down. Baldwin finds holes in defenses and Wilson finds ways to get him the ball. So I think until you see it start to collapse, there's no reason to doubt it's going to happen again. I don't care for the Seahawks. I think he's absolutely worth this spot in the ADP.
Yeah, I'm with you. If you can get him as your number 2, I think this is phenomenal. because I do think when he comes back healthy, he's going to put up the wide receiver 1 numbers, which we expect because there's nowhere else to go. I know that sounds simple and lazy, but there really isn't anything to do. And we've seen the rapport between those two, and it's just the way it's going to be, I think. The last 2 guys here, we can kind of group them together and get a quick take on it. We got T.Y. Hilton. People are raving mainly because everybody that loves Andrew Luck loves the combo with Hilton. And then you have Amari Cooper. People are thinking this is his year after the kind of mess it's been of late, the inconsistency of late. And it's a John Gruden offense. I'm not completely seeing this, but that's the talk. Any thoughts on Hilton or Cooper real quick?
Well, Hilton, you can see my comments about Andrew Luck from earlier in the show, so I'm kind of staying away from him. The only guy I can see myself drafting on the Colts this year is Doyle. I don't get the Eric Ebron all of a sudden. Like, he couldn't catch the ball in Detroit. I'm not sure why he can catch the ball in Indianapolis. So Doyle is the only person I think on the Colts I'll be even thinking of drafting this year. And Hilton is a fine receiver. I'm just not taking him at the 12th overall receiver. There's no way he's my number 1 receiver. If I could somehow get him as my 3, it was a disaster last year. And if Luck goes down and it's Jacoby Brissett again, I just see the offense sputtering again. So I'm staying away from Hilton. As far as Cooper is concerned, my partner Steve did this really nerdy article about John Gruden, and we'll see if his coaching style is the same as it was a decade ago. But he went through – it was really nerdy. He went through the targets for his, top receivers through his entire career, John Gruden's entire coaching career, and he focused on the number 1 receiver at a ridiculous rate. So if that holds, and again, it was, 10 years ago since he's coached. If that holds, I think Cooper is the no doubt number 1 receiver there. So he, I believe, is going to be in for a solid bounce back year. I'm good with him as my number 2.
Okay, I like it. Let's talk 16 through 20 real quick. You got Mr. Consistency, Mr. Somehow He's finding the field, Larry Fitzgerald. You got Juju Smith-Schuster, Demaryius Thomas, Brandon Cooks, Allen Robinson. Larry Fitzgerald at 16. To me, this is a wide receiver 2 that you love in a PPR league. He doesn't seem to be losing a step at all. Sam Bradford loves those quick little outs, stuff like that. What's your thoughts on Larry Fitzgerald?
I'm with you. I'm good with him here, especially in PPR leagues. I'm hoping it's Josh Rosen, honestly. But, Bradford he's very accurate. Like you said, the little short stuff, which is what Fitz's game is at this point. But I think he is capable of more. I think the offense will be better if it is Rosen. So, when Bradford gets a hangnail in 2 weeks and is out for the year, I'm sure we'll see him there.
No, I completely agree. I think Rosen will get his time eventually. It's just out of all the rookie first-round quarterbacks, I think Bradford's the best one that can hold the spot the longest, if that makes sense. I know Tyrod probably will if they keep winning, but Arizona's defense will be decent enough to keep them in games. As long as they're winning, they're going to go that route, I think. They did draft Christian Kirk, a talented wide receiver. What's your thoughts on him as a wide receiver 2 on their offense? Probably a wide receiver 3 or 4 in fantasy.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I've drafted him in a couple mock drafts and a couple real drafts that I've done. I think he's got a chance to have a real solid rookie year. I mean, clearly the defense is not going to be fully focused on him. I can get down the field a little bit, and if the quarterback can get on the ball, I think Christian Kirk is a great late-round pick.
All right, let's talk Juju. We already know Antonio Brown's the man. Big Ben, there's talk about Vance McDonald being a huge tight end weapon, and Ben likes his tight ends. Juju had a great year last year. There's no sugarcoating that. But is this hype really warranted on Juju Smith-Schuster?
Yeah. It keeps getting a little bit higher, and I keep getting a little worried about it. He was a great receiver last year, but I think we're maybe giving him a little too much credit for this. The Steelers are a good offense, no doubt about it. They throw the ball plenty. Vance McDonald will get his. I don't know if he'll be the Heath Miller 2.0. But as mid-tier number 2, not even mid-tier, little high-tier number 2, yeah, it does scare me a little bit. I like Smith-Schuster a lot. I could see myself taking a chance on it, but I would like him to drop, into the high 20s for me to really feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. If he was like an early wide receiver 3, sure, all aboard. But right about now, he's going to be a wide receiver 2 on teams. If he went running back heavy, he might be a wide receiver 1 on teams, and that's pretty terrifying to me.
Yeah, that's too much.
So, Yeah, let's talk to Demarius Thomas. They went and got a new quarterback in Denver in Mr. Case Keenum. Demarius is there. Emmanuel Sanders is there. People say, oh, now they have a real quarterback. Things will be great. I guess we'll see. But what's your thoughts on those guys?
I think Thomas is going to be probably the same guy he's been, not scoring as many touchdowns as he did earlier in his career. I think Keenum will be an upgrade, clearly, over what they've had. They've had just absolutely awful quarterback play for a few years now. But I don't think Keenum is going to be – I can't say what he was last year. He threw like 22 touchdowns. But when people talk about him, you'd think he threw 35 touchdowns. I think he'll be fine. I think Thomas, he'll catch his 85 balls, maybe 90 balls, 1,100 yards, and he'll probably have 7 touchdowns. It's a very nice, very nice line. That's about what I expect from him. As your number 2 in a PPR league, you could do worse. You could do better too, but you could do worse.
Yeah, to me, he's just kind of this might not be the right way to say it, but he's kind of a poor man's Larry Fitz to me. Like, he's going to be that guy that gets his constant production week in and week out. Maybe doesn't have the highest ceiling with the Keenum back there, but the floor is pretty stable. That gives you that good wide receiver too, that if you want to gamble on a Christian Kirk or something later in your draft, you have that availability. I don't mind a Demarius Thomas. I definitely like him over Emmanuel Sanders in that offense, but both could be very interesting.
Yeah, I think Emmanuel Sanders.
Let's talk Brandon Cooks. Okay. What was that?
I was going to say, I think we're going to see Cortland Sutton eat into Emmanuel Sanders this year. It didn't seem like the Broncos were all that thrilled with keeping Sanders, but nobody was going to take him at this point in his career. So I won't be surprised if we see Sutton eating into Sanders' value this year.
Definitely. Let's talk Brandon Cooks. He got paid by the Rams when he got over there in the trade. Then he got paid, and that offense was dynamite last season. They got better with obviously the Cooks edition. You have an offense that's just or a defense is absolutely loaded now. They're going to be paying Donald to go with all the other weapons they have there. It's going to be pretty nice there in Los Angeles. What are your thoughts on Brandon Cooks fitting there? There's Cooper Kupp. There's still talking early. He's basically a wide receiver 1.5. There's all kinds of weapons there.
Yeah, there is, and don't forget Robert Woods as well. So I mean, there's 3 really good receivers with Cooks there. Cooks is. I think he is what he is, and I think it doesn't matter where he is, what team he's on. It seems like he's the same guy. When he's in New Orleans, when he was in New England, his stats have been at least reasonably close, and I imagine they'll probably stay about the same for the Rams. He's a great deep threat. Jared Cook can definitely get the ball down the field, so I think these two are going to hit it off. The problem as far as fantasy is concerned is that he's not a high-volume reception guy. He's going to get you 68 to 75 tops, 1,000 yards, probably 8 touchdowns. Maybe he'll get up to 10, on this kind of offense back indoors for him. Last year he spent a lot in the AFC East, which gets cold, once Halloween hits. So maybe the going back indoors is going to help him out. So I like Cooks a lot. I can have him as my number 2, and I think he'll be kind of consistently what he's been throughout his career.
The last guy they have here is Allen Robinson. I wanted to bring him up mainly because people are really starting to buy into this Chicago Bears offense kind of being the next big thing with the new coaching staff, another year with Mitchell Trubisky, Burton's in town, increased running game possibly. There's a lot of different chatter on this Bears offense. What's your thoughts on Allen Robinson kind of returning to that form we saw a couple years ago?
I like Allen Robinson. I'm good with him here. I've kind of been a fan of his also since his rookie season. Sucked that he got hurt last year and missed the whole year. I kind of like what I saw from Trubisky as well towards the end. His first couple games, I think the one game that he threw 9 passes. I mean, what are you going to see when the guy throws 9 passes? It was just It was the most elementary offense possible. Make Jeff Fisher look like a super genius compared to what they were running the Bears last year. So I think, it's assuming that everyone picks up the playbook well. I think they'll be better. I agree with you that the hype is a little out of hand for the Bears, but I do think it's going to be vastly improved from last year. I'm not looking like a Rams improvement, that they were just night and day from what they were the year before. But I do expect them to be better. I'm good with Allen Robinson as my second if I wait. And like I said, with me loading up with running backs early, I'm good. If he's my second, I'm really happy with that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That'll wrap up our top 20. There's guys like Jarvis Landry and others right outside there. Are there any guys you're kind of looking at outside the top 20 that really are focuses of yours right now?
You know, I play in mostly PPR leagues, so a lot of guys like Michael Crabtree. I'm excited about Pierre Garçon coming back this year. He had 50 receptions in half a year with, Brian Hoyer and C.J. Beathard at quarterback. Now with Garoppolo, I'm excited to see what he can do. I think Sterling Shepard is going to have a real nice year for the Giants. And the one that I think I can't wait to see what happens is there's been a lot of just everyone is kind of crapped on Jordy Nelson. And then he came out and had, he's looked really good so far. I'm really interested to see how the next few weeks for him play out. He looked awful when he came back last year. And I don't know if it was Brett Hundley or did he lose a step. And we're going to find out real soon. I've drafted him a couple times, whether it's best ball or I think I drafted him again in Fishbowl. So he's a guy that I'm very cautiously optimistic on that, isn't quite done just yet.
Yeah, I'm with you there on Jordy. I'm kind of where he's falling to. He's kind of reeling me in with. I still think there's something there with what's going on, but there's a lot to like at the wide receiver position. Super, super deep. We could go on for a long, long time, but we don't need to do that tonight. You have things to do. I have things to do. People can listen to other things like your podcast. Let everybody know what you got going on again at Fighting Chance Fantasy.
Yeah, take a listen to Steve Rapid and I. He's at Fantasy Geek 37 on Twitter. I'm at Fighting Chance. We'll do our show live Thursday at 10. So no matter what we say, that's what comes out. We're one of the few I think that doesn't edit anything, and it shows, believe me. But check us out, Fighting Chance Fantasy. We got the training camp articles, rankings, everything else, all kind of goodness for you as you get ready for your draft. So check us out and drop us a line on Twitter, and we'll hook you up with some good advice.
Yeah, go check him out. Check Ryan out on Twitter at Fighting Chance. A lot of good stuff with those guys over there, and a lot of fun. Just not just football. There's all kinds of good, goofy stuff we got going on over there. And as he mentioned, we'll be in a mock draft tomorrow night. I'll be drafting with them. It's a ton of fun. Did a baseball one with them earlier this year. So looking forward to the football, and they do write-ups for all that, and a bunch of good stuff there. But Ryan, thanks for joining me, man. Really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Come back anytime.
Excellent. Everybody, this is Bench with Bubba, episode 114, talking some fantasy football and wide receiver deep dive. Catch you guys next time.